Most people think manifestation is about adding something new to their life. A new car, a new relationship, a sudden opportunity that feels like magic. But here's the simple truth that rarely gets spoken. Quantum manifestation is less about pulling something in and more about finally seeing what was already right in front of you. Think about the last time you were hunting for your keys. You searched the table, the counter, the pockets, even under the couch. You swore they weren't there. And then, suddenly, you spotted them sitting on the table the whole time, in plain sight. They didn't appear out of nowhere. Your perception shifted. Your mind literally filtered the field differently. That's manifestation in its rawest form. Now scale that tiny moment up to your entire reality. At every second, you're standing inside a field of infinite possibilities, like a vast radio dial full of stations. Most people are locked into one station, the channel of lack, stress, waiting, or doubt. They assume that's all there is. But when you shift your inner frequency, you tune into a different broadcast, and suddenly, the world responds in ways that feel almost supernatural. The problem is, we're taught to chase outcomes with force, as if the universe only rewards those who push hard enough. Yet the quantum field doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to coherence. It mirrors the state you are embodying, not the story you're repeating in your head. This is why people say affirmations until their throat hurts and nothing changes. Their words are vibrating on one frequency, while their body and emotions are stuck on another. The field doesn't tune to what you say. It tunes to what you are. And once you grasp this, the game flips. Because you'll realize you don't need to force reality. You need to learn how to change stations. Here's the simplest way I can explain it. Imagine reality like a giant radio dial. Every possible version of your life is already playing on a frequency, like a station broadcasting 24/7. One station is the version of you who keeps running into dead ends. Another is the version where opportunities flow, where conversations click, where money feels lighter. You don't create these stations, you tune into them. This is the observer effect in action. Quantum physics shows us that what gets observed becomes real, while everything else remains uncollapsed possibility. But here's the catch. Observation isn't just with your eyes. It's not about looking at something harder. The deeper observation happens with your nervous system, your emotional baseline, your body's felt sense of this is real. That's the true broadcast the field is picking up. Think of it like this. Your thoughts are the song you think you're playing, but your body is the actual transmitter. If your mind is declaring abundance while your body is still wired for survival, you're not on the abundance station. You're on the scarcity station. The dial hasn't moved, even if the lyrics are inspiring. That's why embodiment is everything. Embodiment means the thought isn't just in your head. It's settled in your chest, in your gut, in your breath. When you embody a reality, the field treats it as the real channel. People suddenly text you back. The job offer lands. The solution you couldn't think of reveals itself. None of this comes because you forced it. It comes because you shifted stations. So here's the mechanism, stripped bare. 1. Your body and emotions create the signal. 2. That signal decides which station of reality you're tuned into. 3. The field responds by collapsing into that version of events. Sounds straightforward, right? Yet this is where most people trip up. They believe that if they just think positive, the universe will reward them. But if the body is broadcasting incoherence, the field only mirrors static. And that's why they stay stuck, even when they swear they're doing everything right. Because the truth is, manifestation doesn't fail. People simply keep tuning into the same station while wishing for another song. And in the next part, I'm going to reveal the biggest myth that keeps people glued to the wrong frequency. And once you see it, the whole process of manifestation suddenly makes sense. One of the biggest myths floating around in the manifestation space is the idea that if you just visualize hard enough, the universe has no choice but to deliver. Close your eyes, picture the dream, repeat the script, and wait for the doorbell to ring. Sounds neat. But let's be honest, it rarely works that way. Why? Because visualization without embodiment is like picking a station on a radio app but never pressing play. You're staring at the song title, but the music never comes through the speakers. The myth here is subtle but destructive. People think clarity of thought equals clarity of signal. They assume that if they can see it vividly in their mind, that's enough. But the field doesn't collapse around mental pictures. It collapses around embodied states. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Picture someone waiting for a text back after a first date. They sit there, phone glowing, rehearsing affirmations in their head. I am worthy of love. I am magnetic. I attract connection with ease. The thoughts sound powerful, but underneath, their stomach is tight. Their shoulders are curled forward. Their breath is shallow. The body is broadcasting anxiety, not magnetism. Guess which station the field tunes into? The anxiety station, the doubt station. And even if the text does arrive, it often matches the underlying frequency, vague, delayed, or inconsistent. The field mirrored the true broadcast. This is why you might hear people complain, I did everything, the vision boards, the affirmations, the scripting, and nothing happened. They weren't wrong to try. They were just working from the myth that thought alone creates reality. In truth, thought is only the seed. For it to grow, the soil has to be the nervous system, the body, the embodied signal that says, this is already who I am. So instead of obsessing over visualizing harder, the real shift is learning to feel the new station in your body before you see it outside. Relaxing the breath until safety replaces urgency. Standing differently, speaking differently, walking differently, as if the new reality is already the most natural thing in the world. And here's the strange paradox. When you stop gripping so tightly to the mental picture, the body finally has space to catch up. That's when your signal clears. That's when you stop watching the station title and actually hear the music. But there's another piece almost nobody talks about. Why your nervous system acts like a gatekeeper, deciding whether your signal even reaches the field in the first place. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Here's what most people don't realize. Your nervous system is the gatekeeper of manifestation. Before your signal ever reaches the quantum field, it has to pass through your body's filter of safety. If your body doesn't feel safe, no matter how much you think abundance or speak love, the transmission comes out scrambled. Think about a radio station again. When the antenna is bent or shaky, the music cuts in and out. Static overwhelms the song. That's what happens when your nervous system is dysregulated. Your signal loses coherence. Safety is the missing link. When your system feels under threat, it pulls all your energy into survival. The body doesn't care about calling in wealth or connection in those moments. It only cares about getting through the next hour. Which means the field doesn't hear I'm abundant. It hears I'm not safe. And then it mirrors that back. This is why some people loop in cycles of lack or rejection. They're not broken. They're not cursed. Their body simply doesn't feel safe enough to hold a higher broadcast yet. So, how do we change that? We regulate the system. We create coherence between the heart, the brain, and the body. And it's easier than you think. Let's try something right now. Close your eyes if you can. Breathe in slowly through the nose for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 2. Exhale gently through the mouth for 6. Do this 3 times. Now, bring your hand to your chest. Feel the warmth of your palm against your body. As you breathe, imagine sending your breath directly into your heart space. Visualize your heart expanding, softening, opening just a little with each inhale. Finally, think of one thing, just one, that you genuinely appreciate in this moment. Maybe it's the chair you're sitting on, the phone in your hand, or the fact that you're breathing. Hold that appreciation in your chest, not your head. Notice how your body feels now compared to 2 minutes ago. What you just did is simple heart-brain coherence. You signaled safety. You allowed your nervous system to soften. And in that softening, your signal became clearer. This is the foundation of manifestation. Not pushing reality, but creating a body that feels safe enough to broadcast a new station. But safety alone isn't enough. Because even when people regulate, they sometimes get stuck chasing temporary states, high vibes that fade after a day or an hour. Which brings us to the next key. The difference between states and identity. Here's the trap so many fall into. Chasing states. They meditate, breathe, visualize, maybe even dance or journal until they feel that burst of alignment. Tingling, hopeful, expanded. For a moment, the world feels wide open. But then life happens. An email comes in, a bill reminder shows up, or a memory of failure creeps back, the state collapses, and with it, the belief that manifestation is working. States are powerful, yes, but they're temporary by nature. They rise, they fall. They're like weather passing through the sky. If you build your manifestation practice on chasing states, you'll always end up disappointed because you'll believe you have to feel good all the time to stay aligned. That's exhausting, and it's not true. The deeper key is identity, who you believe yourself to be, not just in the highs of meditation, but in the quiet, ordinary hours when nobody's watching. Identity is the stable sky that holds all the weather. Here's what that means in practice. You might have moments of doubt, moments of stress, moments of old habits flaring up. But if your identity is, I am the kind of person who always finds a way, or I am someone who lives in abundance even if I don't yet see all the evidence, then the signal doesn't collapse with every storm. The body relaxes into a deeper baseline. That baseline is what the field tunes into. This is why embodiment is less about hitting perfect states and more about rehearsing a new self-concept until your nervous system says, yes, that's me now. Think of an athlete. They don't need to feel inspired every day to perform. They've trained their body into an identity. I am strong. I am disciplined. I am capable. The signal is consistent, even when motivation wavers, and the same applies to manifestation. When your identity shifts, your station shifts. People begin responding differently. You carry yourself differently. Opportunities that once felt impossible start showing up naturally because you're not faking a state anymore. You're living from a deeper broadcast. But here's the real kicker. Identity doesn't just shape how you feel in the present. It literally determines which timeline of reality you lock into. And once you understand how timelines work, you'll see why small shifts in identity can cause massive changes in what you experience next. And that's exactly where we're heading. If identity is the broadcast, timelines are the stations. Each possible version of your life is already unfolding somewhere, like parallel tracks on a rail system. And here's the mind-bending part. You don't move toward timelines with effort. You collapse into them by who you decide to be right now. Picture two parallel stations. On one, you're still carrying the identity of, things never work out for me. On the other, you're living from the identity of, life always opens doors in my favor. The external details between these timelines might start small, a missed call here, a surprising opportunity there. But over time, those tiny divergences create entirely different worlds. This is why identity matters more than temporary states. A state says, I feel abundant for 5 minutes. An identity says, I am the kind of person who lives in abundance, even when things wobble. And the field listens to the steadier broadcast. Let's ground this with a real-world scenario. Imagine someone in a job interview. Two people with the exact same resume walk into the room. One carries the identity of, I hope they like me, I hope I'm good enough. The other embodies, without forcing, I bring value everywhere I go. Any company would be lucky to have me. They answer the same questions, they share similar skills, but the timelines they collapse into are radically different. The first candidate unconsciously radiates nervousness, maybe rushing their words, maybe tensing their shoulders. The second candidate radiates coherence, calm, grounded, magnetic. Who do you think the hiring manager feels drawn toward? That's not luck. That's not manipulation. That's the quantum field reflecting two different identities onto two different stations of reality. Here's what's wild. Shifting timelines doesn't always require huge outer changes. Often, it's as subtle as breathing differently before you walk into the room, standing taller, letting your chest soften, and quietly affirming the deeper identity of who you are becoming. That micro shift changes the broadcast. And the moment you change the broadcast, you've already changed the station. This is the quiet power most people overlook. They're trying to control circumstances, forcing outcomes, waiting for proof before they shift their identity. But timelines don't work that way. The proof comes after the identity change, not before. And the good news? You don't need to guess how to practice this. There are very tangible tools you can use to rehearse a new identity, so that your body, emotions, and nervous system all start transmitting the signal of the station you want. That's what we're going to build next. So how do you actually rehearse a new identity until your system broadcasts it naturally? The answer isn't repeating the same affirmation until you're blue in the face. It's about creating anchors, bridges between thought and embodiment, that train your nervous system to live inside the new signal. Let me give you a toolkit of practices you can use today. The first tool is what I call bridge statements. Instead of trying to leap from "I'm broke" to "I'm wealthy," you create believable steps. For example, "I'm learning how to create more space for money to arrive," or "I'm open to the idea that opportunities can flow my way." These statements feel safe to the nervous system. They don't trigger resistance, and safety is what allows the broadcast to actually shift. The second tool is somatic anchors. Choose a physical gesture that represents your new identity. Maybe placing your hand firmly over your heart, standing with feet grounded, or gently rolling your shoulders back as if you're wearing a crown. Use that gesture whenever you want to tune into your chosen identity. Over time, the body learns. This movement equals this broadcast. The third tool is embodiment drills. Pick a small action you can perform as your future self. For example, if your desired identity is "I am someone who handles money with clarity," then take 5 minutes each day to organize your wallet, track your spending, or visualize paying bills with calm ease. Don't wait for the $1 million. Embody the identity now in micro actions. And the fourth tool is future pacing. Before you walk into a situation, whether it's a conversation, a meeting, or even just starting your day, pause and ask, how would my future self show up here? Then embody that version in how you breathe, how you speak, and how you move. You're essentially borrowing the frequency of your chosen station and practicing it until it feels natural. Now let's put it all together in a mini protocol. 1. Start with a bridge statement that feels believable. 2. Pair it with your somatic anchor, gesture, or posture. 3. Perform a micro action, embodiment drill, that aligns with your chosen identity. 4. Before engaging with the world, future pace into that broadcast. 5 minutes a day is enough to start tuning your signal. It doesn't need to be dramatic. Consistency is more powerful than intensity here. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stopped gripping so hard, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. But even with these tools, there are traps that can pull you back into old broadcasts. Urgency, split signals, and over-control. And once you know how to transmute them, you'll understand why most people get stuck and how you can avoid their mistakes. By now you know how to tune into a new station. But let's be real. Most people don't get stuck because they don't know what to do. They get stuck because 3 hidden traps keep pulling their signal off frequency: urgency, split signals, and over-control. Let's start with urgency. Nothing scrambles a broadcast faster than desperation. When you need something to happen right now, the job, the payment, the call, it puts your nervous system into survival mode. And remember, survival mode broadcasts only one message: not safe. Which means the field mirrors back situations that confirm you're still waiting, still lacking. The paradox is that urgency doesn't bring things faster. It keeps you tuned into delay. The antidote? Slow down your breath even when your mind screams to rush. Create micro moments of calm so your body knows it's safe to receive, not just chase. Next, there's split signals. This happens when part of you says, "Yes, I want this," but another part quietly whispers, "But what if it fails? What if I can't handle it?" The field picks up both broadcasts and mirrors them as mixed results. This is why some people manifest half opportunities, inconsistent partners, or money that comes in but quickly slips away. The signal was never clean. The way to dissolve split signals is through honesty, naming the fear out loud and bringing it into coherence. For example, part of me is scared of success, and I'm learning to hold that part with compassion while I still move toward expansion. Integration strengthens the broadcast. And finally, the big one: over-control. This is the tendency to micromanage the field. People think if they visualize every detail, repeat the ritual perfectly, and hold on tight, then reality has no choice but to obey. But control is resistance in disguise. It tells the body, "We're not safe unless it happens exactly this way," which narrows your frequency, closing off the infinite stations you could be tuning into. The solution is surrender, not passivity, but the willingness to let go of how the outcome arrives. You hold the broadcast steady, and you allow the field to surprise you. Here's the beautiful truth. Each of these traps is just a signal in disguise. Urgency means your body needs more safety. Split signals mean a part of you needs more integration. Over-control means your identity hasn't yet trusted the field fully. None of them are failures. They're simply feedback on where to tune. And once you learn to dissolve these traps, you can finally bring coherence into every corner of daily life, which is exactly where we're heading next. Here's where the shift becomes real. Not in meditation, not in rituals, but in the most ordinary corners of your day. Because manifestation isn't about escaping daily life. It's about infusing daily life with coherence. Think about walking down the street. Most people are caught in their head, replaying conversations or worrying about the future. Their body moves automatically, but their signal is broadcasting static. What happens if, instead, you bring awareness to each step? You breathe slower, feel your feet touch the ground, let your chest open slightly. Suddenly, you're broadcasting coherence with every step. The walk becomes a tuning fork. Or take eating. Most of us rush meals while scrolling on our phone, barely tasting what's in front of us. That habit broadcasts urgency and disconnection. But if you slow down, taste each bite, breathe between them, and silently thank the food for nourishing you, the act of eating becomes a daily practice of embodiment. You're telling the field, I live on the abundant station, where nourishment flows easily. Even conversations can become integration practices. Notice your tone of voice, your posture, the way you listen. Instead of leaning forward in anxiety or shrinking back in self-doubt, experiment with softening your shoulders, breathing deeper, speaking slower. Those micro adjustments shift your broadcast more than any vision board ever could. The point is, coherence isn't something you turn on once a day in meditation and then forget. It's something you weave into the fabric of life until it becomes who you are. Walking, eating, speaking, all of it becomes the rehearsal of your chosen identity. And here's the beautiful surprise. When you live this way, manifestation stops feeling like a separate practice. It stops being, now I will manifest. Instead, it becomes the natural byproduct of how you exist moment to moment. The field doesn't need convincing anymore. It has a steady embodied signal to mirror. But there's another layer waiting here. Because once you stabilize this in your personal habits, the ripple spreads outward. Relationships begin to change. Creativity sparks in ways you couldn't predict. Even health and purpose take on a new rhythm. Daily coherence expands into entire domains of life. And that expansion, that cascade, is where the real magic begins. When coherence becomes your baseline, it doesn't just affect how you walk or breathe, it starts to reorganize entire domains of your life. The signal you broadcast doesn't stay small. It ripples outward into relationships, creativity, health, and even the sense of purpose that drives you. Let's start with relationships. When you embody a steady broadcast of safety and openness, people feel it immediately. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. Your presence communicates it. Conversations flow easier, conflict resolves faster, and connections deepen without you needing to over-explain. You've tuned into the station of mutual resonance instead of the one of fear or performance. Then there's creativity. Have you ever stared at a blank page or canvas feeling blocked? Most people try to think their way out, forcing ideas to appear. But when you're broadcasting coherence, creativity stops being a struggle. The field responds by delivering insights, images, and words that feel like they drop in from nowhere. You stop trying to be creative and instead embody the station of, I am someone who channels ideas easily. And suddenly, the page fills itself. This same principle applies to health. Coherence isn't just a spiritual concept, it literally impacts physiology. When your nervous system feels safe, stress hormones decrease, the body heals more effectively, and energy becomes steadier. Health challenges often soften when your broadcast shifts from, I'm broken to, I live in a body that knows how to restore itself. The signal reorganizes biology. And perhaps most powerfully, there's purpose. Many people feel lost because they keep scanning for an external answer. What's my mission? What should I do with my life? But when you embody coherence, purpose starts to reveal itself through resonance. The opportunities and invitations that match your deepest frequency begin to stand out. The noise fades and the station of clarity comes through. Let me ground this with one more scenario. Picture someone scrolling late at night, comparing themselves to others. They see friends landing promotions, traveling, starting families. Their chest tightens. They start believing they're behind. That frequency only deepens the sense of lack. But imagine that same person remembering to pause, breathe, soften their chest, and remind themselves, I am on my own station. My timeline is unfolding with precision. That single shift changes not only how they feel in the moment, but also what opportunities magnetize to them the next day. This is the quiet revolution of coherence. It starts in small choices, walking, eating, breathing, but it expands until every domain of life begins to reorganize around a new frequency. And beyond all of that, there's one final layer. Because manifestation isn't only about self-improvement, it's about aligning with something far larger than yourself. Up until now, we've been talking about manifestation in terms of signals, stations, and coherence. But there's a deeper dimension, one that shifts the entire conversation. Because at its core, quantum manifestation isn't only about getting what you want. It's about aligning with the intelligence that animates everything. Call it the quantum field, call it source, call it life itself. It doesn't matter which name you choose. What matters is this: you're not separate from it. The same force that spins galaxies is the force breathing your lungs right now, which means manifestation isn't about bending the universe to your will. It's about dissolving the illusion that you're separate from the field in the first place. And here's where the paradox comes in. Real power doesn't come from gripping tighter. It comes from surrender. Not surrender as in giving up, but surrender as in leaning back into the current of a river that already knows where it's flowing. Think of the times in your life when something arrived effortlessly. The friend who showed up at the exact right moment, the opportunity that felt like it fell from the sky, the healing conversation that unfolded without planning. None of those came from micromanaging reality. They came when you let go, when you softened just enough for the field to do what it already wanted to do through you. This is why surrender is strength. It's not passive, it's a radical trust. Trust that the field is intelligent, that life has already encoded your path inside you, and that your job is to tune into the station where it plays clearly. And once you taste this, the whole process of manifestation shifts from personal effort to partnership. You stop trying to drag reality into alignment, and instead you let alignment find you. Every breath, every conversation, every choice becomes an act of listening for which station the field is inviting you to tune into. Here's the truth most people overlook. Manifestation isn't about control. It's about coherence with a force infinitely larger than your individual will. And when you live from that awareness, you realize that you're not manifesting alone. You're co-creating with the same intelligence that moves the tides and births stars. But we still need to land this plane. Because everything we've covered, the observer, the nervous system, identity, timelines, coherence, surrender, leads to one final simple truth. And once you see it, you'll never look at manifestation the same way again. So here we are, at the heart of it. The simple truth about quantum manifestation is this: you're not trying to force reality into place. You're not begging the universe to notice you. You're tuning your own signal until reality has no choice but to mirror it back. Think again of the radio dial. For years, you may have been twisting the knob, frustrated by static, catching fragments of songs, never hearing the full melody. You thought the music wasn't there, but the music was always playing. You just weren't tuned in clearly. That's manifestation in its essence. Not making the song exist, but finding the frequency where you can finally hear it. Every practice we've explored, breathing safety into your body, rehearsing new identities, dissolving urgency, weaving coherence into daily life, has only one aim: to move the dial. And when you move it, even slightly, the entire soundtrack of your life begins to shift. People respond differently. Opportunities appear. Old cycles dissolve. Not because you shouted louder, but because you finally matched the station. And maybe the most liberating truth is this: you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to feel high vibe every second of the day. You don't even need to have it all figured out. You only need to broadcast a signal of coherence consistently enough for the field to recognize it. A little steadiness, practice daily, changes everything. So let this be your reminder. The field is listening. Every breath, every step, every moment you embody the identity of your chosen timeline, the music grows clearer. The world shifts to meet you, not as a reward, but as a mirror. And that's why, from this moment forward, you don't have to wait for proof before you tune the dial. You are the proof. The station you live on is the life you will experience. So here's my invitation. Step onto the frequency that feels like home. Live as if the song you've been longing to hear is already playing, because it is. All that's left is to listen.